Hi, what we're looking at here is a NuTone NM200 intercom master station. It was sent in by a customer. Let's take a look at what he says is supposed to be wrong with it and see if we can figure out if those things are correct and what it'll take to fix it. It was installed in 2014, which is just about 4 years ago. Today he says it has no radio, none of the intercoms work, the large heat sink on the back of the unit is very warm to the touch, it has low volume, and all of this started about 2 months ago and it all happened suddenly. So we're going to see today if we can figure out what's wrong with it and what it'll take to fix it. Now this is part of our ongoing NM series intercom repair initiative. I don't know what part this is going to be, it'll be in the title. As I have explained in previous videos, these units are challenging to work on because there are no service manuals for them, there's no real technical information. It's all sort of on us, seat of the pants, see what we can figure out the right way to fix them. We're starting to compile the 10 most common things that go wrong list with NM series intercoms, and this will be a good example because it's a real world one to work on. So let me show you what I have as a setup here. So we've got the NM200 here. I have it hooked up to a standard NuTone AM/FM dipole antenna, nothing special. I have it connected to a 3-note chime module because that's what I happen to have here at the shop. This is also from the NM series. Everything here is from the NM series. Over here we have a standard NM series power transformer. I have it hooked up to one inside remote station on a piece of Cat5 cable, which is the recommended cable for NM series. I also have it connected to a real NM series front door station. It's just on a 2-conductor cable. We'll just ring the chime module right on the chime module terminal. I didn't want to run a button across the shop. It's sitting here powered up and ready to go. Oh, I also have it hooked up to my X-Tech multimeter. I have it on temperature mode in Fahrenheit, and I just taped the temperature probe to the back of the big heat sink on the amplifier, and this has been sitting here running now for about a half an hour or so while I was setting up to do the video, and it's been pretty stable, 86, 87 degrees, not very warm at all. So not sure what's up with that. We'll just leave that sit there. Temperature measurements, complaints like it feels too hot, those are kind of hard to quantify sometimes. You know, you've got to give it time. It's not in an enclosure, so we'll have to do something to cover up the back when we're done with the repair if we get it fixed, and let it run for a day or so and see how the temperature actually ends up. But right now, just touching it, it's very slightly warm to the touch, which is pretty much what I would expect. So it's powered up. Let's go ahead and check out some of the complaints. So none of the intercoms work. Well, okay, if I put that over there, if we use the intercom controls, so let's go through the adjustments. Power on turns on all the features. The NM series, you can turn the music on and off. The intercom is always ready to go, but if you want to go through all of the adjustments that are in the tone menus, you need to turn the power on to access all of them. Otherwise, it's just the intercom volume adjustment. So if we scroll through master station volume, it's at full at 29. The loudness is on, so it has more bass. The treble is set at 12. The bass is also set at 12, so that's fine, mid-range. Intercom volume set at 22. That's pretty normal. Most of these that I've installed in people's houses, you're looking at intercom volume usually somewhere between 19 and 22 is about right. Of course, if you stop pressing the buttons, it times out and goes back to the clock. So we'll go back to intercom volume. And then music volume is at 29, which is maximum. I would think 29 is a little high. In most houses where I've installed, I would start usually around 14. In most people's houses, I think maximum's a little too high. That's just the normal way you would set up one of these. And then we have our intercom controls down here. So it's 2 buttons for all intercom functions. The NM200 is a 6-wire system, so it has talk and listen buttons on every station. So if you push the talk button, It comes out through the remote station here. I don't know how well you can hear that. And then if you push listen, it comes back and you can hear the reply. So that does seem to work. The howling is the feedback because the speakers are so close. So that seems to work okay. If you push both buttons down together, then it's door talk, which comes out through the inside stations. We'll turn this one down so I can hear the door speaker, which is over there. And it does indeed come out of the door speaker. I can hear it, so I'm going to run over there and tap on it so you can hear that I can hear the reply. And that was the reply. So the intercom does seem to function. That will just make a note of that. We can quickly ring the chime module. We'll just jumper across the terminal. So this is a 1, 2, and 3 note chime module. So if we move this over here, we'll just jumper across common in 1, 1 note, common in 2, 2 notes, and common and 3, all 3 notes. So the chime module seems to work. So far, we're not finding a lot wrong here. The door chime, he said the door chime works, so that's good. Intercom, none work. Well, it seems to work here. What I will do, as we do a more comprehensive checkout on it, is we'll move the connector. So the way this series is designed, at the master station, on the end of each piece of Cat5 cable, there's a little green plug-in connector, and on the back of the board right here there are sockets, and you plug each station into a socket. This makes troubleshooting nice because you can just unplug them and move them down the column and try each one as you go, and that's really fast. It's a lot better than having to terminate 6 or 8 wires on screws for every single station, so I kind of like that. And I don't expect that there would be a lot of difference as we go down. I have a feeling the intercom is going to work just fine. The other features that we have, which we can do from the remote station, is we have talk from the remote station. Talk. That works. Listen. Oops, I have the speaker turned down. That works. Door talk, both buttons together. And then listen over here. So that seems to work. And then we have our radio control buttons here. So we have radio on, radio off. Both buttons together is scan. Once the radio is playing, you can adjust the music volume up or the music volume down. So let's go ahead and turn it on. And, oh, it was already on CD. So I'll tell you what, let's put it back down to 14. We know that the volume up and volume down work because I just did that. Our meter timed out. Temperature on the heat sink is still at 86, so that's all fine so far. So let's go ahead and switch our source. We're on CD, which is an auxiliary input, and we have auxiliary, and now we're on AM, and it's supposed to be on 1050, and I'm not hearing anything, and I know it's turned up, so we'll let it scan ahead. And I think you can see the numbers on the video as it scans, and it's just going through and it's not stopping. And it got to 550 and it stopped, but you can't hear anything. So that's not really doing anything. So we'll switch to FM and scan again. It stopped at 90.9. and 92.1 and 93.3 and 94.1. So It is stopping. Those are all real radio stations. I don't know about the 89.5 one exactly, but all the other ones are actually really FM stations that we can get here. So it seems to be tuning, but there's no sound. Now what we have to figure out, we'll turn it off, we have to figure out why that is. Lack of sound. Lack of sound could be a lot of things. It could be a power supply problem, where the power supply isn't powering some section of the master correctly. It could be an amplifier problem, you would think, but maybe not, because the intercom works, you can talk back and forth, that requires amplification. The door chime rings and you can hear that, that requires amplification. However, there are multiple amplifier circuits in an NM series master station, so could it be that the intercom and the chime use the same amplifier? Maybe, I don't know that for certain yet, and the radio or the music portion uses a different amplifier. That's a possibility, and that different amplifier could have a problem. I'm going to show you an easy way to determine that before you decide, oh, I've got to rip it all apart because it's got a blown amplifier. So let me get that set up and I'll show you. So the NM series, there are two sets of auxiliary input jacks on the back of the unit. They're RCA jacks. They are labeled as their CD right and left input and auxiliary right and left input. I have to look and see if they're mixed in the circuit board into a mono signal, because the NM series is a mono intercom. The reason they have stereo jacks, I think, is because when they made the 6-disc CD changer, I'm pretty sure the CD changer was a stereo unit, because the actual changer mechanism that you would put the cartridge in, I don't think they made that. I think they bought that from somebody, and I don't think anybody makes mono CD players. It's probably converted inside the master station. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 1/8 inch plug cable into RCA plugs, adapter cable that we have, and we're going to plug that into one of the inputs. We'll put it in the CD input because that's the one at the top and it's easiest to get to, and we're going to take the other end and I'm going to plug it into my phone because we have music on the phone. And so we'll turn on the music, we'll switch to the CD input, and we'll pick something to listen to. Oh. Okay, let's turn this up.
Little missed the boat that day, he left the shack, but that was all he missed, and he ain't coming back.
So apparently the music will play. Now, did it play from the remote station? Let's take a look and see. So if we turn our master volume down in the menu, which is really annoying, I prefer a knob, and we have that turned up. Play this again. Alright, the music does play. That would lead me to believe that it would be possibly a tuner related problem, where the tuner, it seems to be scanning FM stations properly, but no signal is coming out of the tuner, and it's some part of the tuner that affects both the AM and the FM. We're going to take a look at that. Now, one of the things the customer said was he thought the system had low volume. Now, low volume is kind of tricky because we don't have a ton of experience with NM systems. We need a solid music source or signal source to make sure that there's enough signal going into the system to produce the amount of volume that should be coming out. And I know for a fact that, we'll unplug this, my phone, which I use when I go put audio jacks on people's intercoms in their houses, and I usually use this to try it out, make sure that everything works properly. My phone has really lousy signal level output. It's low compared to most other phones, could easily be a third or so less than average. It's not a good measurement device to send a signal into this. It was mostly just to see if the music would play. So what we really need to do is we need to get the tuner sorted out, and that way, in theory, if the tuner works correctly, we'll see how much volume we actually get out of it. So let me disconnect some things and let's see what we can figure out. On the back of the NM200, this is the tuner module right here, and on the end of the tuner module is this little circuit board here, and that's where the FM dipole antenna connects on. Now, if this was done, if an NM200 was installed in new construction, the installation kit came with a different type of AM/FM dipole antenna, and it had a coax cable leader on it, and there actually is a coax connector down in here. But if it was being installed in place of an older intercom system where you couldn't put in the new antenna and you had to use the dipole antenna, then you would get this adapter board. Basically, this is a 300 ohm to 75 ohm input converter, and it also has a little inductor here and a resistor, and this little loop wire right here. The purpose of this is to adjust the impedance of the antenna and also send the AM signals to this side because the AM connections are over here. So we'll go ahead and we're going to take this off. And you don't want to lose the screws or the spacers. And we'll just put that aside. And then here we have our tuner assembly itself, and it's screwed, it's on this bracket that's screwed here to the back of the heat sink. So we'll go ahead and get a little cup. We'll take the screws out. There are 4 of them. And then we get the last bit out here. And then there's this flat flex ribbon cable, and it's plugged into a connector in the tuner, so you can wiggle that and unplug it, and the tuner module comes away from the master station. While we're looking at the back here for a minute, this aluminum piece right here, which was held down by the 4 screws, this is part of the heatsink assembly, because under here there's another metal bracket, and then there are transistors here and here and here and here, and these 2 have these finned heat sinks which are soldered to the board. This is part of the amplifier design, and you have all this heat sinking, so the heat that the transistors generate has a place to dissipate to. And if you put the tuner assembly back on here, which is all metal can, that aids in that also. Whether or not it's good to have the tuner connected by screws to the heat sink source and then the tuner module gets hot and all that, I don't know. That's the way they did it, so what are you going to do? So let me get this out of the way, and then we'll take a look at our tuner. So here's our tuner module, and we need to open up the can. So there's a nut down here. So this is the coax connector for the antenna that came with the installation kit, and it seems like there's a nut and a big washer that hold the can together with. We can get that loose. There we go. Alright, put that in there, and we'll take off that cover and take off that cover, and here's the actual tuner module. It's a metal can. It looks like there's a cover top and bottom, so if we pop the covers off, here's the connector for the flat flex ribbon cable right here. A good thing to do on this is to make sure that you get the can back on the right way. You can put some red marker lines on it just so it's easy to remember how it goes. After you've done this a million times, we'll know how it goes, but being the first one, that aside. Put that aside. So there's the inside of the tuner. There's the back side of the tuner board. What you probably can't see, let me take a closer look. This is, if you've watched our AmScope microscope video, you'll understand why we got that, because this board is, while there's an IC right here, and there's a smaller IC package right here, most of the rest of this, like right here, there's a little tiny resistor. It's about the size of, let's see, it's probably about 1/5 the size of a grain of rice. That's how small it is, and they're all over this board. So if you have to work on something like that, that's why we bought a microscope. Now on the other side, you've got a lot of surface, or a lot of through-hole parts. They're somewhat miniature parts. You've got coils in cans for adjustments. There's some open coils, the red ones down in here. There are a variety of, looks like standard miniature size electrolytic capacitors. There's a trimmer pot here. There's a crystal down there. There's one transistor right up in here, one through-hole transistor. These are small parts, but they're not miniature parts. They're just a little smaller than average. If I take a quick look at this, let me see if I can set this up and show you what I see. So that's as close as I can zoom in. What I see on this board is this area around here, like here and up to the shield wall, this area, and this area up here, which is a little hard to see because it's kind of in the shadow. The circuit board is a lot darker in this area, and actually, so it's darkest up here, and then going down it gradually becomes somewhat lighter. However, if you compare the color of the board here to the color of the board over here by the crystal, this is a lot lighter than this is over here. And the same thing is true up here. Why is it darker? Well, that's easy. It's darker because it's gotten hot. And that's why circuit boards turn dark, is from heat. The other thing I see is there are a variety of capacitors. They're all black. There's one here, 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 down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and 3 little ones down here. The smallest ones, this one, these 3 down here, and this one over here, they all look pretty normal to me. However, the 3 large ones, which are here, here, and here, the tops of the capacitor cans are tinted. They're like blown out from the inside. They're not split open because they're not that style. They don't have a vent in them. The vent could be on the bottom. But if you look at this one is like absolutely flat. This one is convexed. It's pushed out. It's domed up. And I think what's happened here is that these 3 large capacitors have failed, and that alters the whole circuit to some point. Since they're fairly large, it could have something to do with power filtration or something like that. Without a schematic, it's hard to know, so we'll have to see what we can figure out. But it could be that that's why this isn't working, is because these 3 have failed. That's kind of unusual for something that's only maybe 4 years old. We're going to prove out, before we dig into this, because that would be the inclination, is, all right, let's get in there and replace all the capacitors. No, 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 no. I have a much better idea first. Let me get that set up and I'll show you what we're going to do. Before we decide whether or not we should tear apart a tuner, here's the blown up one, probably. Here we have a replacement. How about that? So this is supposed to be good. I have a few of these. What I'm going to try here is, this is a very valid troubleshooting method, which is quick substitution of a module with one that's supposedly good. Supposedly this is good. So all we have to do here is we'll take our antenna adapter and we can plug it in to the end of the board, because you have to have an antenna, otherwise you're not going to get any signal. So we can plug that in. We can orient this the right way because we have to plug our flat flex ribbon cable in the right way. Of course, we don't want to touch the back of the board. I'm not going to put the can covers on at the moment. I'm just going to kind of hold this here. And we'll tip our master back up. And actually it can sort of sit there. And that's fine. And we'll go ahead and plug it in. And it came on. And if we do power, and there's AM. Well, we have some static. Let's see if our master volume's down. We have some reception. Now, AM here is not that good at the shop. So we're going to switch over to FM, especially with the fluorescent lights on. FM source. Scan.
Little pieces, but when you watch the whole thing,
there's
it does
a good station.
Pause. It kind of makes you.
Let's turn. Oops.
Best mix 92.1.
Turn our master volume up.
Diablo Valley weather today, mix of clouds and sun, 68 for the high. 40% chance of rain later tonight. We'll get down to 45. And tomorrow we do have a 40% chance of morning showers. London, England.
So now, I'll turn this off for a second. What I did with the adjustments was, I think I said in the first part of the video, normally the music system level throughout the house, 14's about right. If you remember, I think when we turned it on the first time it was at 29 and I said it was too high and set it down. So what you want is the music, the system-wide music level adjustment, you want that at a lower gain. You want it at most houses it's 12 or 14's about right. That way you're not feeding too much signal into the amplifier so the amplifier isn't working really hard and you're not overdriving it so it doesn't tend to get hot. And then you also want the master station volume and all of your remote stations turned up to full so they're using whatever power is available. What you don't want is a situation where the amplifier is making 100 units of power, which would be blasting the doors out in the house because it would be so loud, and so then people do what's natural, which is they turn the volumes down. So you have an amplifier that's making 100 units, you have speakers that are only using 15 units, and the other 85 units aren't being used, and so the question is, where does the extra energy go? And the extra energy turns into heat in the amplifier. And also, if we go back to the customers folder here, one of the complaints, large heat sinks, very hot to the and warm to the touch, very warm to the touch. Well, if you overdrive an amplifier and you have your speakers turned down, your amplifier is going to get hot. That's just the nature of the way this works. You have to have it set up properly. So I have the system-wide adjustment at 14. I have the master speaker volume set at full. And if we turn the power on,
what's your favorite shows, sports, movies, and
it sounds fine.
Content wherever you go using Xfinity.
So let's preset that.
Xfinity today. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit your local Xfinity
store. And we'll scan up, and that's actually pretty good.
Todo verde. Significa que el doctor aquí ha reciclado esa chatarra vieja que tenía en su cochera y recibió dinero. Porque él necesita dinero. Todo.
Mentioned that you and your whole family went to Indonesia. Now, what was going on?
Life today at ICanAffordCollege.com. So you want to go to college for some new skills, but you need a little help to pay the new bills. There we will be a little gambling, and it's fun when you're with me. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. It was another very specific.
Préstamo hasta que te llegue el reembolso de taxes. Llámales al 1-800-680-3188. El loan.
Got it high.
Okay, so I've preset the 8 presets, and if we scroll through them,
Talk to affected mothers.
Llámales al 1
They all
800
work.
CS and their start.
Turn that off. So I'm going to turn off the fluorescent lights in the shop, and then we'll do the AM. We have really powerful fluorescent lights in the shop, and they just make a ton of RF noise. So you always have to turn them off. So lights are off. We'll turn this on. We'll go to AM. Oops, AM. And see what we get.
All you have to do is go to
We'll set that one.
It says COTTHYV.
Now,
Because a series of states said we are going to disregard federal
now
law.
AM reception in the shop
And
is not usually great.
The Civil War started because Abraham Lincoln said, you know.
So let's see if we can do a little bit of manual tuning here. Manual tuning on these is such a pain. And that's not so great.
I believe maybe 10, maybe 100 men or women will decide that they're going to get something as a result. Double their numbers, they got a lot of enthusiasm.
So a lot of tuner designs that have seek or scan tuning, they have designed into what's called a threshold. So the signal that it sees has to be of a certain level or it just scans by, and reception here is not so great. I have a feeling that this replacement tuner seems to work okay. So let's, while we have it hooked up, let's address the customer's complaint about low volume. And remember, when I had my phone hooked up to it, I said it wasn't a good way to judge it. So now we have a working tuner. Put it back on FM.
TV on while you're there, and I promise you, I'm
And
gonna
pick.
work on my pick.
China, they would go into every
American Express.
So they're all about the same at that level. If we turn the music volume up, the system-wide adjustment up, that seems about right. If we turn the loudness off, you can I would say that it has plenty of volume. I think the primary problem with this unit is a couple things. One, it obviously has a bad tuner module. I think that the heat sink's very warm to the touch. I have a feeling that's an adjustment problem. The low volume, that doesn't seem to be the case, and none of the intercoms work. On any system, I don't care which NuTone system it is, all the way back to the very earliest ones in the 60s, all the way up to the last real one in 2010, intercom doesn't work. A lot of times it has something to do with the installation. Either there's a short in a wire somewhere, or a wire's rubbed through on a staple, or something's not terminated correctly, or it could be a problem with a remote speaker, but it doesn't seem to be the case right now. Let's take our remote speaker and hook it up. We'll plug it in. We already verified that the intercom works. See if we can do this without pulling everything off the bench. So now we can check out our music control. If we want to turn it on, radio comes on. We can lower the volume, and it'll turn off. We can turn it back on, raise the volume. Push both buttons will scan through the presets. CD, auxiliary, AM, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, FM, and off. Seems to work okay to me. So I have a feeling that the primary problem with this unit is the tuner module. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this off camera because it's too hard to show and there's not enough to see. I'm going to take the one that we took out of the set, and I'm going to see if I can, by replacing the capacitors that look like they have failed, if we can resurrect it and keep and reuse it, because there's not an endless supply of tuner modules at the moment, and we need to conserve everything we can. So I'll be back in a bit. All right, I'm back. Okay, so a little bit of time has passed, and I don't know how well you will be able to see this. This is one of the capacitors that I took out. It's one of the large ones I took out of the tuner, and unfortunately you can't see it really well. I'll see if I can do a shot at the end. But this is the bottom. Remember I said how the top was domed? Well, the bottom, the seal, has totally pushed itself out right here, and it's basically spilled its guts all over the board. And actually all three of the capacitors, all the three of the large ones that were in the tuner were like this. They're all the same value. They are some brand that I've never even heard of before. Let's see if we can read it. They are MHC brand, and supposedly they're 105 degrees C rated. It's a 220 at 16 volts. Apparently, whatever they are, it isn't good enough to work on a tuner for 4 years. So these were the four that I replaced, the four large ones. And since I was in there, and now's a good time to do it, I replaced all of them. So there's every single electrolytic capacitor that was in the tuner has been replaced. So you can see here, I don't have a lot of miniature ones, but fortunately my standard stock of capacitors that we keep, they all fit in the can. I think the lids will go on okay, I hope. I replaced all of them. You can see they're all the blue ones. I actually found on the bottom right here, so one of the large capacitors are these two pins, and then there's this IC, and there was actually a little bodge wire that was soldered from one leg of the IC onto one leg of the capacitor, which is kind of interesting. So obviously there was some kind of problem with that. We replaced them all with good ones. We found actually blown up ones. So let's go ahead and put this in our set and see what we get. We'll plug our tuning antenna adapter back into this one. So over here, this is the one we just used. This is the replacement, which we hopefully get to keep. Put that over there, and this is the original one. You can tell it's the original one because you can see the board's all dark from the old capacitors. We'll go ahead and set this up. We'll plug the flex ribbon cable into it, and we'll plug the intercom in, and it comes on. One of the nice things about this design is instead of having a backup battery, it has a super capacitor in it, and it acts like a backup battery. So all of our preset stations should still be programmed into the microcontroller on the main board, and all we have to do is turn the power on, switch to, there's AM. If we scroll through our presets,
Responsible for that. You get a mountain lion in your mouth.
We're talking about illusion.
Call them, see if that's the
not the best reception, but if we go to FM, there you go.
Performance is by Ed Sheeran.
Little booklets about scope.
Sometimes I don't.
There's 8 if we scan.
I'm gonna leave it all out. Buzzing, taking shots like it was nothing.
All right. So
I need to hear you now.
We can turn our music volume down, up and down. Our master volume is fine. I think we're good. So how's that? The first NM series tuner repair. This is our donor one that we're going to keep and hang on to. It'll probably become my testing tuner module because we know now that it's good, so it's a good standard to have. This one works. We can always do the same thing on another set. So let's run down the laundry list of complaints from the customer. Radio's not working. Yes, it is now. AM, FM, scanning, reception seems normal for the shop. That's all good. None of the intercom functions work. Well, we know that it does work because we tried it and I showed you, so we're good on that. Large heat sinks, very warm to the touch. Nah, I don't think so. A low volume? No, it has plenty of volume. On the radio, the volume is fine. With my phone, it seems a little low, but that's the phone, not the intercom. So I don't think there's anything else wrong with it. I think it was a bad tuner. And I think it's pretty interesting that the 4-year-old intercom and the tuner module blows up and stops working, and it's a bunch of it's a couple bucks worth of parts is what it comes down to. And all of this, unless it's a horrendously something wrong in the design, which I would doubt because they've been making these for a long time, it comes down to quality of parts. These are cheap quality components and they just simply didn't last. So there you are. I am going to put it all back together, hook up some speakers to it, let it play for a day continuously. We'll monitor the temperature of the heatsink and all of that, but I don't expect there to be a problem. If there is, I will make a notation at the very end of this video about that, but I need to move on to the next repair. That's all there is for this NM200. I hope you found this interesting, and perhaps it'll be helpful to those of you who have problems with your NM series or DMC series intercoms. You can work through some of the problems on your own. Remember the part about plugging the external audio cable into it and playing from your phone to see if that works or not. If you found this video interesting and helpful, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube, because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification to let you know so you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.